Hello, boys and girls, and welcome to part two of our lesson today. You may have noticed that the title of our lesson is Monet, and that stands for the artist Claude Monet, who we are going to be learning about today. Our art piece is also going to be inspired by this artist. Right here is a picture of Claude Monet and one of his art pieces. He was very famous and most well known for painting water lilies and ponds. Claude Monet was the most important of the Impressionist painters. I want you guys to say that word out loud. Repeat after me. Impressionist. Impressionist painters use color and brush strokes in a new way. So, our artist yesterday was Pablo Picasso, and we talked about how he invented a new style, and Claude Monet was a part of another movement that was inventing a new style. Claude believed in painting by layering colors of paint. That means that he would add different colors on top of each other to create an image, a texture, or a different color that had a lot more dimension than if you were just to do one coat. You can kind of notice that here in these little cloud areas. You can see that there's kind of some white, some blue, and some grays, and it kind of gives it that more realistic, airy cloud of smoke that's coming out from this train right here than if he was just to do it with white alone or a gray alone. You can see the different tones and colors that he used to create that. There is almost never any outlines in Impressionist art. The whole painting is just blobs and smears of color. So that's pretty unique because in a lot of drawings, we start out by drawing out the shapes that we want to depict. They just added color and brush strokes, and it kind of grew this larger image over time. Claude tried to show the changing colors and shadows during the day. He painted this same haystack many times. So he would paint the haystack in the morning, at night, in the afternoon, because the sun was always in a different position and the lighting of the day was always different, which gave it kind of a unique look every single time. Do you know what time of the day Claude painted this? If you guessed sunrise or sunset, you would be correct. We can notice this by that beautiful golden hour light and the soft shadows that the sun casts off when the sun is either just rising or just setting. Other times, Claude would paint the same picture at different times of the year. So he would paint the same landscape during the summer, winter, fall, because that also created different light and the weather created a different season. So everything would just be slightly different. So this particular image right here was painted during the winter. Look closely at this painting. Can you see the brush strokes that Claude used? So if you look closely, this picture is a little bit pixelated, which makes it kind of difficult to see. But if we look closely, we can see that it's almost as if like little dots or little rectangles that are the brush strokes make up a bigger image. So it's one of those things where if you're standing far away, it looks a lot more clear and detailed. And when you get up close, you can see that it's kind of a bunch of blobs making up one big picture. Claude loved to paint the pond at his house in Giverny. Like I said at the beginning, this was something that he was most well known for, the lily pads in the pond. More than anything, Claude loved to paint the water lilies in his pond, as we see right here. In his water lily paintings, Claude liked to paint the reflections of light and color in the water. So if we look closely right here, we can kind of see that there are probably some trees or bushes on the side of the pond. And as we know, if we look into the water, it kind of acts as a mirror, and we can see reflections of things that are going on outside the pond. And right here, you can see that Monet depicted the trees and the brush around our pond. And you can tell that by the light color that's cast off on the pond, that it's probably during a time where there's a decent amount of daylight, so probably in the afternoon. Here is the Japanese bridge that Claude had built over his pond. So I want everybody to pay attention and take a closer look at this image in particular right here, because this image is going to serve as our inspiration in part 3 of today's lesson, where we create our own Claude Monet inspired art piece. In this picture, Claude used his Impressionist, let's say that word again, Impressionist, repeat after me, Impressionist. Claude used his Impressionist style of layering to paint his wife, Camille. And remember that the unique thing about Impressionist artists is that they don't use outlines. They use brush strokes and blobs of paint to create a bigger image. And remember, another thing that was important about the layering was that they would use lots of different colors to create more detail. Like we can see, just like we saw in the smoke coming out of the trains, we can see in this cloud that it's not just plain white. We can see that there are some blues, light blues, dark blues, grays, whites to create that depth. Claude painted many things, but he is probably best known for his beautiful water lily paintings. All right, so thank you very much for joining me in today's art history lesson. At this time, I want you to go over to part 3 of today's lesson so we can create our art project together.